Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Shekalim Daf concludes the first parak of the Masechta and begins the second parak with the first two Mishnayos of the second parak of Maseches Shekalim. So from the beginning of the Daf until the end of the parak discusses what happens when you have two brothers inheriting an estate from their father. Do they have to bring Shekalim or not? Do they have to bring the Kalbon with their Shekalim or not? And do they have to give Meiser Behema or not? The second parak teaches us the halachos of what happens when the shluchim, the messengers, would bring the shkalim from all around Eretz Yisrael to Yerushalayim, how they were able to transport it, and what happened if something happened along the way and it got lost or stolen. And then we'll get to the second Mishnah in the second parak, which will teach us the halachos of what happens when you use money that has kedusha to set it aside for shkalim. So first of all, we are discussing what happens when two brothers inherit an estate from the father who passed away. Now there are two ways that this inheritance can be. The inheritance can be in its original estate. It still belongs to the estate owns it. That means that all the property has one owner, the estate, and the two brothers have just become the managers of that estate. It's not considered to be owned in partnership. It's considered to have one owner. That's how the inheritance is until something happens with it. That's how it falls to the possession of the brothers at first. Now, if they then divide up the estate, split it, then it becomes each has their own share, their own portion in it, and each owns their own assets. They don't own any assets together. Then if they recombine and form a repartnership, it does not go back to the original state. It does not become one joint ownership that's controlled by the brothers. It becomes two partners, each owning half of all the assets, and that's shared. Now the Gemara asks, why is this so? How is it? Why don't you say that it returns to its original state and it becomes one estate, it becomes one owner that's controlled in partnership by the brothers? The Gemara says, think of it as if you had two brothers-in-law that are married to two sisters that join together in a partnership. That's a partnership that has nothing to do with the original estate which controlled the assets. And therefore, that's the same situation that's happening over here. Two brothers come together. They've already split it up. They each have their own assets. The fact that they once inherited it does not get restored. It does not go back to the original inheritance state. It doesn't recreate the lost estate of the father. Each one has their own property that they join together in a partnership. Now, situation like that, what happens is that you have a partnership owning the property. Then there is no Meiser Behema. If the animals that are owned in the property are owned in partnership, then the halacha is that partners don't have to bring Meiser Behema. Meiser Behema is only brought by one owner. Something which is joint owner, there is no Meiser Behema obligation. Now, the Kalbon, you do have to bring. If they were to take one whole shekel coin and bring that to the Beis Hamikdash for both of them, that's only partnership by each of them. As we've seen the halacha of the Kalbon you have to bring, according to Rabbi Meir, you always have to bring a kalbon just in case some of the silver got rubbed out. According to the Chachamim, you only have to bring it if you're not using a half shekel coin, because the half shekel coin has a higher value than all other coins that can be used to make up half a shekel. The coin itself is worth more, and you have to make up that difference with a kalbon. Over here, you're bringing one whole shekel coin. The brothers together, that's you have to bring a kalbon to make up the difference in the value. Now, the Gemara asks, when they've originally inherited it and they've kept the estate together, why is there no kalbon? I understand that you'll tell me in a situation like that there is Meiser Behema. You'll go l'chumra and you'll say, listen, it's not owned in a partnership. We say that we view this stringently as if it still belongs to the original estate of the father. And therefore you're chayiv in Meiser Behema. We say that there's one owner, there's one estate which owns it. But as far as kalbon is concerned, why do we say that l'kula there is no kalbon obligation? I should view it as a partnership. Who cares if they inherited it from the father and they never split it up? Why is that? Why does it take off the kalbon chiyuv? The Gemara explains that it's as if it still belongs to the father. It's the estate which owns the sela. It's the estate which owns the shekel that's being given for the two of them. That's a gift. The estate is giving them a gift. It is giving the shekel that they owe. And the halacha is that any gift, there is no kalbon requirement. Now, the Gemara has said that when there's a kalbon, there's no Meiser Behema. When there's Meiser Behema, there's no kalbon, depending on what situation the partnership is in. The Gemara says, and this is really the first Gemara in the Daf, the Gemara says it doesn't have to be that way. It could be that there's a situation where you have kalbon and Meiser Behema, and a situation in which you have neither kalbon nor Meiser Behema. How's that? Well, it it's really just rearranging how they split it. Maybe they split the property differently. Maybe they left the animals belonging to the original estate and split the rest of the property. Situation like that. They left the animals in the original estate. There's no partnership in the animals, and therefore there would be an obligation of Ma'aser Behema. But they split the rest of the property, and therefore the shekel that they're going to give is owned in partnership. It's not owned by the original estate, and there is kalbon, so it could be Ma'aser Behema and kalbon. And conversely, you could have the same thing. If they split just the animals and rejoin them together, the ownership of the animals, then you would have no chiyuv ma'aser behema because it's owned in partnership. And if they left the kalbon together, then that's being given by the original estate. If they left all the other assets together, then the the shekel that's being given is owned by the original estate. Again, that's being given as a gift. There should be no kalbon either. So the Gemara says, okay, I hear that. The Gemara says, just keep in mind one thing, and that is that if the animals that were split or not split are the majority of the value of the estate, that sets the policy, that sets the nature of this partnership for the entire estate. Meaning, if you split part of it, you didn't split the other part of it, but the animals are clearly the majority, then whether you split it or you didn't split it, that would have that would be how you define the rest of the estate, and therefore what you're saying only works if the animal part, which is split or not split, is not the majority of the estate. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to say, well, part of it is defined in this type of partnership, and part is defined in a different type of partnership. Now, the Gemara, just before the end of the parak, says, where does the kalbon go? Where does that money end up? What happens with it? So the Gemara brings 5 opinions. Rabbi Meir says it goes to the same fund as the shkalim. It's used to buy karbanos tzibur, tamid, musaf, all those things. Rabbi Lazar says, no, it goes for a special fund called carbon nidava. When the mizbech has nothing on it, we bring voluntary karbanos. We have a fund where we just bring nidavas, volunteered karbanos, just so that the mizbech shouldn't be empty. Hashem Chizuri says they use it to make the gold plates which would line the walls and the floors of the Kodesh Kodashim. Benazai says it was used to pay the money changers. The money changers would collect the machatzes of shekel, the half shekel coins from all around the country and bring them to Yerushalayim, so they were paid for that with these kalbons. And the last explanation is the Yesh Omer, which says that there's 2 versions of Lahotzas Derachim or Lahotzos Rabim. It's either to fix the roads leading to Yerushalayim, or in order to pay off the people who have to bring the shkalim to Yerushalayim. Now, if that's the explanation, then when we said the schar of the money changers, we were referring to paying them for changing the money, not just bringing the shkalim to Yerushalayim. This concludes the parak, and that takes us to the next parak, which is parak Mesarfin Shkalim. The Mishnah deals with what happens when you have shkalim collected outside Yerushalayim and it needs to be brought to Yerushalayim. So the Mishnah says that there were collection chests set up all around the country. They were shaped like a shofar. They were narrow at the top, and they had a winding, twisting tube leading from the opening to the chest. That was in order that people shouldn't be able to stick their hands in and steal some of the shkalim. Now, these were set up all around, and had to be brought by messengers to Yerushalayim. Now, obviously, they were full of a lot of shkalim. They were extremely heavy. So the Mishnah says that they were allowed to exchange the shkalim for coins that were made of gold called the darkonos. The darkon was worth 2 shekels. That means that they were able to exchange 4 half-shekel coins for 1 gold darkon, and that therefore cut down the weight by about 75%. Now, they brought it to Yerushalayim. Now, what happens if it got stolen along the way or if it got lost? So somebody has to take the loss. So the question is, did it belong to the Beis HaMikdash already and Beis HaMikdash takes the loss? Or did it belong still to the township, to the owners, the people of the town who put it in the boxes, and now they have to take the loss and they have to give new shekels to replace it? So the Mishnah says it depends if Trumas Halishka happened yet or not. Now that means as follows. There's a certain point, there were 3 times a year at which the administrators of the Beis HaMikdash made a withdrawal of shkalim from the box of Machatzis Shekel in order to be able to buy karbanos. The first one happened on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, that money had to belong to everybody. It had to belong to all the Jews all around the country in order that they all have a share in the Karbonos Tzibur that's going to be purchased with it. Even those whose money didn't yet arrive in Yerushalayim were considered to have a part in that money that was in the boxes in Yerushalayim already at the time. That means that at the time that withdrawal happened, everybody's money was in there. That means that all the money, even that which is just on the way and hadn't arrived yet, is considered to be already there. It's considered to be already belonging to the Beis HaMikdash, and all the money is viewed halachically as if it's mixed together. Therefore, if that withdrawal already happened, the money which is on the way already belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, and if it got lost or stolen, Beis HaMikdash takes the loss. The people who gave it don't have to replace it. If, however, it was not withdrawn yet, then it still belongs to the people who sent it, and if it gets lost or stolen, they have to replace it with another round of shkalim. Now, the messengers who are bringing the shkalim have the halacha of a shomer. They're a guard, a watchman, and therefore, if they are claiming that they themselves don't need to take the loss, that somebody else needs to take the loss, either Hektish or the people who gave them the shkalim in the first place, they have to swear that they didn't do anything wrong and that they are not chayiv in the responsibility for it. So the Mishnah says that they have to swear if it's a situation in which Hektish needs to take the loss, they have to swear to the administrators of Hektish, and if it's a situation where the people who gave it have to take the loss, they have to swear to them. Now the Mishnah goes further and says, what happens if you actually later recovered the lost shkalim? After the people replaced the shkalim that they gave, and they gave more shkalim, what happens if the original shkalim were recovered? Either the thief returned it or you found it somewhere. So what happens then? So the Mishnah says that they don't get their shkalim back, they don't get a refund, and they don't get a credit for next year. The shkalim, we shall see in the Gemara what happens to them exactly, but they still have a full obligation to give full shkalim next year, and they don't get this back. There are 2 sets of shkalim that were given this year by that town, and that's the end of it. Okay, the Gemara now begins, and the Gemara analyzes a number of the things in the Mishnah and limits and shows what are the opinions that the Mishnah must hold underlying. And first of all, the Gemara begins by asking, if we're exchanging the money already for something which is lighter, or something which has a greater value, and therefore you could have less of it, why are we exchanging it for the gold, the darkonos, where you can only get 4 coins for a darkon? Why don't we exchange it for pearls, which are very expensive, and then you can bring much fewer pearls, and have much less weight to transport? The Gemara says the problem with the pearls is that they lose value quickly. And if we're going to turn the shkalim into pearls, the pearls may drop in value, their value is unstable, and then Hektish will come out losing. The Gemara says this is similar to another halacha which we've seen. If you want to redeem things that belong to Hektish, things which are mukdash, you want to redeem and take them back, transfer the kedusha onto something else, you could redeem it in anything. You could redeem it in money or in objects of value, except for shkalim. Shkalim you can't redeem. Not for kalim or anything else other than actual coins. You can't redeem shkalim, and the reason is because objects have too much of an unstable value, and Hektish may end up losing out if the item that you've exchanged the kedusha to goes down in value. It's the same thing here. You cannot exchange it to pearls. You can only exchange it to coins. Now, other coins are relatively stable. They're not going to lose value. We can assume that the value of a gold darkon will stay for half shekels pretty much. Now, the Mishnah had said that there are boxes set up all around there to collect the coins. The Gemara says these boxes will only collect the coins from this year. There's something called Tiklin Atikin. Tiklin Atikin are coins that were supposed to be given last year. Somebody missed the deadline and didn't give them the entire last year. If you're going to give them this year, they are not going to be used to buy karbanos. It's too late. The deadline is past. The deadline is actually Sukkos of this year. If it's not given by the Sukkos of this year, then you have to put it into the box of a Tiklin Atikin, and then it's used for other public needs. It's not used for the karbanos anymore. You still have to give it, but it's used for other things. Now, these boxes for old coins that are past the deadline, last year's coins, were only in Yerushalayim. If you missed your deadline and you didn't bring it by Sukkos, you have to go travel to Yerushalayim to put it in one of the boxes for Tiklin Atikin. They didn't have those outside of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, now we had said in the Mishnah that the messenger who's bringing it has to swear that he's not responsible to take the loss because he didn't do anything wrong. So Gemara says, well, the Mishnah had said what happened to it. It said that it was lost or stolen. Now we know that the halacha is that a shomer sachar, messenger, a watchman who's paid, is responsible for something lost or stolen, and he does have to take the loss. So obviously our Mishnah is not talking about a shomer sachar; it's talking about a shomer chinam, somebody who's not getting paid. He is not liable if it's lost or stolen. He just has to swear that he wasn't posheya, that he didn't do something negligent with the coins or steal it himself. So Gemara says, not necessarily. That's one opinion. There's another way to understand it. It could be that there's a type of loss and a type of stolen that even a shomer sachar does not have to pay for. He doesn't have to take the loss for. He's not liable. Something stolen is if he's robbed by armed bandits who come and take it from him. That's called stolen. But even a shomer sachar is not responsible for that because there's nothing he could have done about that. He's not in any way responsible for that. It's considered to be an einus. And the loss could be that he was traveling on a ship and the ship sank. Again, that's lost. It's lost at sea, but it's obviously not his fault. He couldn't have been a better watchman and avoided it from happening. The ship sank. There's nothing he can do about that. And therefore, it could be that we're referring to really a shomer sachar, and he's swearing either that he was attacked by armed bandits or that it was lost at sea. Okay, next thing the Gemara discusses is this, that we've seen that the person who takes the loss, either hektish or the people who gave it originally, depends on whether the withdrawal of the Beis Hamikdash was performed yet. And we had explained that is because if the withdrawal happened already, that has to be a withdrawal for everybody, even the shekalim that are on the way. Otherwise, they don't own a piece of it. The Gemara says that's actually a machlokes, whether that's true or not, whether that withdrawal includes funds. It's a withdrawal also of the money that hasn't arrived yet. We also assume that money is all, we consider it as if it's all mixed together and we are withdrawing some of their money as well. That's what our Mishnah is going like, and that's what the Mishnah is saying, that when that withdrawal happens, it's also withdrawing the value of the money that's on the way, and that money is already considered to have arrived in the Beis Hamikdash. However, there's the opinion which argues and says, no, this withdrawal is only for the people who gave the money already, that their coins are there, but the people who are on the way don't have a chelik in this withdrawal, then it wouldn't make a difference when that withdrawal is. So our Mishnah is obviously not going like that opinion. Okay, next thing which we've seen in the Mishnah is that we've seen that the Shomrim have to swear, the messengers have to swear. The Gemara is surprised by this. The Gemara says, why should the messengers have to swear? We know that the halacha is that a shomer has to swear, but that's only if it's not something which is hektish. If somebody's makdish an animal for a carbon or something, and he gives it to a shomer, and the shomer loses it, he doesn't have to swear. Why not? Because who should he swear to? It doesn't belong to the original owner. The original owner was makdish it. Once he's makdish, it belongs to hektish. And you can't swear to hektish. There's no halacha of swearing if you lose something which belongs to hektish. That is only halacha for a private individual. So how come this guy here has to swear? So Gemara brings a machlokes to explain it. Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Elazar says this is the opinion of the Tana Rabbi Shimon. The Tana Rabbi Shimon holds that you do have to swear to the original owner, and the reason is that since it's lost, the original owner has to replace it. Like, for example, if it's a carbon, he set aside an animal as a carbon. He said, this animal is going to be a carbon that I'm going to bring. He gives it to Shomer, and Shomer loses it. So the owner has to replace it. So he is going to sustain a monetary loss here. He may not have lost something which belongs to him. The animal which you lost is not his, but it does cause him a loss because he has to replace it. Something like that is considered his as far as swearing. Since it causes him a loss, an indirect loss, therefore you swear to him. And therefore you have to swear to him. And that is Rabbi Elazar's explanation. The Gemara asks, obviously, what is that explains why, in a situation where the townspeople have to take the loss, why you have to swear to them. But why should you have to swear to hektish? In where the withdrawal already happened, and the loss is hektish, so why should you have to swear to hektish? That this does not explain that. But the other explanation here as to why you have to swear altogether is Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan says it's got nothing to do with anybody losing. Hektish is the one who loses. It doesn't belong to the original owner. But there's a special halacha, there's a special shvuah that Chazal made, a special takana, that if you lose something which belongs to hektish, you have to swear anyway. And the reason is because we want people to be careful with hektish's things. If you don't have to swear, then they wouldn't. But midrabanan, we added on a shvuah. Now, the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yechanan, I understand why you have to swear to the townspeople, or you have to swear to hektish. Either way, because it belongs to hektish. I understand he was makdish; it doesn't belong to the owner anymore. But the shua midrabanan that we put on it is to whoever is going to be the one to take the loss. You have to swear to the townspeople if they take the loss, or to hektish if they take the loss. But Rabbi Elazar, I don't understand why should I ever have to swear to hektish. The Gemara therefore gives another explanation here. It doesn't credit it to anybody, but it gives another explanation. The Gemara says that what's happening is that it's a shomer sachar, somebody who's getting paid. The shomer is being paid for his transport, and he's coming back to claim the money that he's supposed to receive. So really, therefore, he's swearing to the townspeople. He's coming back because they're the ones who paid him. He comes back to them and he says, pay me for the work that I did. And they say to him, you didn't do any work. You didn't deliver the goods. So he swears and he says, I did my best. There was nothing I could do about it. And then they do have to pay him. So Gemara says that shvuah should be done in the presence of the administrators of the Beis Hamikdash, of Hektish, of the Machzis Shekel. So really, you have to swear to the townspeople either way. Whether it was before the Truma, after the Truma, before the withdrawal, after withdrawal, you have to swear to the townspeople because you're coming to them and you want to collect your funds. You're not swearing to them that they should replace it. Even if Hektish takes the loss, you still go back to the original townspeople and you have to swear if you want to collect your salary. Now, that swearing that you're collecting the salary, that has to be done in front of Hektish if Hektish is responsible to take the loss. And the reason is we don't want Hektish to suspect not him of stealing, not him of being negligent, and not the townspeople of failing to send the money. And we want it to be clear exactly what happened, and therefore that shvuah was done in front of Hektish. Now the Gemara adds halacha. The Gemara says that if the townspeople say, you know what, we don't care, you don't have to swear, we'll be meichel the shvuah, you got to swear anyway, because Hektish has to see that shvuah, and therefore you got to swear for Hektish as well. Okay, Gemara goes on to another sugya. The Gemara says, what if somebody sets aside a shekel? He takes a machzis a shekel, he sets it aside, and he says, this is going to be my machzis a shekel, I'm makdish it for machzis a shekel. Now he doesn't give it yet, and it gets lost, and it gets stolen now. So Gemara brings him a machlokes, well, who takes the loss? Rabbi Yechanan says that obviously the person who set it aside has to replace it. He didn't give it to the Beis Hamikdash yet. It was before the Truma. Rish Lakish says no, even if it's before the donation that was given, Beis Hamikdash takes the loss because he was makdish it. Belongs to Hektish now. Hektish takes the loss. Gemara says, well, that's clearly contradicted by the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that if it was after the withdrawal was made, then Hektish takes the loss. But otherwise, then the person who gives it takes the loss. And here we're talking about where it was before the withdrawal, and the person who gives it takes the loss. Well, how could Rish Lakish say he doesn't take the loss? So the Gemara answers, it's midirabanan. Midaraisa, Rish Lakish is right that the person who gives it gave it to Hektish, it belongs to Hektish, and Hektish is the one who loses it. However, the Rabbanan were mataken that the person has to replace it, and that's only in the situation like the Mishnah described where the withdrawal didn't happen yet. But otherwise, he would not have to replace it. But that then is only midirabanan, and therefore Rish Lakish is talking about midaraisa. It's not a contradiction at all. Now the Gemara says, okay, now what happens to the extra shkalim? If they replace it and they give the extra shkalim, what happens to it? So the Gemara says, it quotes a brisa, which says the first shekels go to the regular shkalim box, and the second shekels go to the old shekel box, meaning the box of shkalim that were past the deadline, that were due for last year. Gemara says, which one do you mean the first shekels? Which one is the second shekels? Which one's which? Gemara says, Machlekes. Pinchas ben Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Abba say that the first shekels means the ones that they sent in the first place and that they found later, and other people say that no, that when we say first shekels we mean the replacement. This concludes the Gemara. It takes us to the next Mishnah. The Mishnah lists 3 ways in which somebody tries to use a shekel, a machatzis shekel, which is already hektish, to use that for the mitzvah of machatzis shekel, and what the halachas are in the 3 circumstances. Case number 1 is where somebody takes a regular shekel, it's not hektish, and he gives it to a shliach and he says, please deposit this for me in the box of machatzis shekel. What does the shliach do? He goes and he says that he's depositing it for his own machatzis shekel. He steals the shekel, the machatzis shekel, from his mishalech, from the sender, and he says, I'm using this to pay off my own machatzis shekel. So now, what is the halach here? So the Gemara says as follows. It depends if the withdrawal from the box in the Beis Hamikdash has happened yet. If it didn't happen yet, then this machatzis shekel was not hektish at the time that the shliach decided to use it for his own. So it was chulin, it was regular money, it had no kedusha. What did he do when he decided to use it for his own? He stole it from the person who gave it to him. So he's the thief, and he has to pay back. But he gave it for his own machatzis shekel, and he just has to pay back what he stole. However, if as he was carrying it, before he put it in the box, often Yerushalayim, the administrator of the Beis Hamikdash, did a withdrawal from the box, and as we learned, that withdrawal is everybody's money combined. All the money has to be combined at that point because he has to withdraw for everybody. Then the shekel that's in the shliach's hands becomes machatzis shekel hektish at that moment. The shliach then takes it and decides to use it for his own. He's now stealing from hektish, not from the original person who gave it to him, because it became hektish at the moment that withdrawal happened. He's stealing from hektish. That's called me'ilah. Somebody who uses hektish property for his own sake, for his own benefits, it's called me'ilah. He violates the iser me'ilah, and if he did it b'shagi, he would have to bring in carbon asham me'ilas. Second case of the Mishnah where somebody uses hektish. This is where somebody took hektish money which was already hektish. He took hektish money and he put it in the box for his machatzas hashekel. So now, when does he violate me'ilah? So it's interesting. When he put it in the box, nothing changed. He took hektish money and he put it in a box of hektish money. He moved hektish to hektish. He didn't do anything yet. He wasn't yaitz machatzas hashekel, but he didn't do anything. However, at the point where the shliach, where the gizbar, where the administrator comes and takes the money out of the box, and he goes and he buys a carbon, and he brings that carbon on the mizbeach, at that point, the money goes to chulin. He used the machatzas hashekel money, including this guy's coin that he took from a previous hektish. He used it to buy a carbon, and then he was makar of that carbon. The moment that he slaughters that carbon, the money goes to the person who sold the animal to the Beis HaMikdash. That seller takes the money, it becomes regular chulin money. That money now goes to chulin. So if it's machatzas hashekel, fine, but this wasn't machatzas hashekel, it was previous hektish. At that point, he has used hektish for his own purposes, and the person who gave it is ma'al. He violates the issur of using hektish. Now the third case is somebody takes meiser sheni or shmita money. That's money that had the kedusha of meiser sheni or shmita transferred onto it. He used the money. He took the money for the sale of meiser sheni or shmita fruits, and now it's kedusha's meiser sheni or shmita. And he goes and he uses it for machatzas hashekel. So what he has to do is he has to replace it. He has to take other money or other fruits and make it meiser sheni or shmita money instead, and transfer the kedusha onto that. Okay, the Gemara first discusses the case of the person who took hektish money and he put it in the machatzas hashekel container, the box for machatzas hashekel. Our Mishnah said that me'ilah happens when a carbon is bought with it and shechted. Gemara says it's a different version of this. That's a brisa said by Rev. Says it happens as soon as the carbon is bought, not at the time of shechita. Gemara says it's based on a machlokes between Rav Shimon and the Chachamim. At what point does someone who sells items, animals, flour, wine, anything, he sells it to hektish for a carbon, at what point does it transfer ownership to hektish and the money becomes chulin, becomes his? According to the Chachamim, it happens at the point of hakrava, the point when it's put on the mizbeach and it's actually sorted or brought, because until then we want the seller to be responsible for it. It's not hektish yet, just in case it gets ruined. We don't want hektish to take the loss. So it still stays belonging to the original owner until it's moved to the storehouses of the Beis HaMikdash, but it belongs to the seller until it's actually used. The money, therefore, is hektish until that point. So until it's used, the money of the machatzas hashekel, which was used to buy karbanos, doesn't go to chulin. That would be our brisa. Rabbi Shimon disagrees, and he says, no, we're not worried that it's going to get spoiled when it's in hektish property, because the kahanim has reason. They use karbanos things right away. They use it up right away, and therefore it's going to end up being used fine. There's no problem. As soon as the sale from the seller to hektish of the animal, the flour, the wine, whatever it is, as soon as that sale is finalized, the money goes to chulin, it belongs to the owner, and the product belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. There's no concern about spoilage because it's going to be used right away. Therefore, the time that this machatzas hashekel becomes chulin and the person who gave it violates me'ilah is from the time of the sale. As soon as hektish uses the money to buy karbanos, that's exactly when it goes to chulin and he violates the issur of me'ilah. Now the Gemara asks a question. We said that the shliach who stole, the first case, the shliach who stole the shekel that was given to him and used it for his own machatzas hashekel, he violates me'ilah. The Gemara says, I don't understand. Why does he violate me'ilah? That shekel was originally given by the original guy. It ends up going into the box of machatzas hashekel. It should count for the machatzas hashekel of the person who gave it, the original person, the sender. Who cares that this guy said, oh, I'm going to use it for my machatzas hashekel? Ignore him. It was given for the original machatzas hashekel. That's what it should be. The Gemara says we have to be talking about a case where there was something recognizable about this coin. It was clearly marked as belonging to the shliach who stole it, and the gizbar, when he took it out, had in mind that this is a machatzas hashekel for the shliach who stole it. And then it doesn't work for the sender. It only works for the shliach who stole it. And that's why there's me'ilah, because he took away what was already hektish as the property of the original person who sent it. The Gemara says, I prove to you that this has to be the case. Because we said he violates me'ilah. Yeah? You're so sure he violates me'ilah? It can only be me'ilah if it ends up being that this machatzas hashekel is used to buy karbanos. Not all machatzas hashekel were used to buy karbanos. There was more given than was needed, and what was left after the 3 withdrawals to buy karbanos went for what's called shirayim. It was a general fund which was used to fix things in the Beis HaMikdash and other public needs. On that, there's no me'ilah. So, how are we so sure that there is me'ila on this machzis shekel that was given. Now there is opinion of Rabbi Meir that there is me'ila on the shirayim, but the Gemara says we're not going to squeeze ourselves into one single opinion. We'd rather say that the pshat over here is that it was a recognizable coin, and we know that the coin was therefore used for machzis shekel. It was used for really buying a karbanis. It didn't become shirayim. Then we've therefore proven that it's machzis shekel, and that also explains what we've said before, that it has to be the situation in which the person violates me'ila because it was used for him and not for the original person who sent it. Now the Gemara asks, in order to violate me'ila, you have to get a hana out of it. But machzis shekel is not a hana. Machzis shekel is a mitzvah. A mitzvah is not called hana. We say mitzvahs lav lehanis nitnu. So what's the hana? Versus the hana is that Beis doesn't come to the guy's house to take away a mashkon, to take away a collateral, to force him to pay. What's that is a big hana. So that's what he gets. That's hana. Okay, now in the case of the person that used Meiser Sheni money, the Gemara says, how can you change from one kedusha to another kedusha? Mepharshim ask, this should be a kasha in all three cases. But the Gemara asks it here. Meiser Sheni kedusha cannot turn into machzis shekel kedusha. You cannot take one kedusha and change it to a different kedusha. The Gemara learns that of a pasuk. You cannot be makdish a bechar as a different carbon. Bechar has kedusha. You can't make it into something else. The Gemara in other places expands that to all types of kedusha can be changed from one to another. So what are you supposed to do here? This guy took a Meiser Sheni coin, put it in the box. Now what? It can't change to kedusha. So the Gemara says what he has to do is he has to take the Meiser Sheni kedusha off. He has to take other money or other fruits. He has to redeem it. He has to say wherever that Meiser Sheni coin is, somewhere in the box, whichever one it is, its kedusha goes off there. It goes onto this coin or it goes onto these fruits, and therefore that goes to chulin, and now it becomes Meiser Sheni. Now it becomes machzis shekel money in the box.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.